Hi everyone, today I'm going to review the case study for Bea Rosen. Some of the presenting problems, Bea is a 76-year-old female presenting with grief after the loss of her husband of 50 years. She's experiencing loss of energy, disrupted sleep, increased anxiousness, depressed mood instability, and some ongoing medical concerns such as gallbladder problems, hearing loss, and heart problems. Some of our understanding of the presenting problems. So Bea is recently widowed. She was married for nearly 50 years, and her husband were codependent on one another. And Bea was also the primary caregiver to her husband, Barry, for the last 10 years. So Bea is experiencing tremendous role loss since becoming a widow, and she's experiencing worsening symptoms since the loss of her husband, which again is that depression, anxiety, mood instability, lack of motivation, low energy, and inability to sleep. Bea relies heavily on family and social support to assist in her activities of daily living. So although she's able to manage most of her ADLs, she's currently enrolled with Jewish Family Services, who assists with finances as well as transportation. Bea's son visits her once a week to assist with getting her groceries, and Bea also relies on her neighbors as well as Jewish Family Services for transportation. Our understanding continued. Bea is currently living alone in an apartment that does not offer senior services. She's experiencing ongoing health concerns that have limited her mobility. Bea does have a history of a nervous breakdown as a young woman for anxieties after the birth of her son. Early in the bereavement stage, Bea did express passive suicidal ideation, but did identify a lot to live for, and also quoted, "If I want to make it, you've got to take it. If you want to make it, you've got to take it." Bea is also facing financial problems now that she is the sole income for her house. So beforehand, she had Barry's income as well as her own, but now she is the sole income and has to rely on Jewish Family Services for financial assistance. Some psychosocial factors to consider. We have protective factors and risk factors. Bea is resilient. She has neighbors and friends she can rely on, strong family relationships with her son and her grandchildren, and she engages in hobbies such as crochet, making stuffed animals, and visiting with friends. Some risk factors are limited finances on Social Security, only receiving around $516 per month. Living alone, again a risk factor because of her age and limited mobility. Lack of transportation, her ongoing health concerns, and the recent trauma with the loss of her husband. Ecological and systems theory. Langer and Leitz state that ecological and systems theories describe an individual's functioning when considering the context of their environment and the interactions individuals have within their environment. Systems theory was first discussed by Ludwig von Bertalanffy as a way of understanding biology as an organized system or interrelated parts. So it recognizes the changes in one component of the system affecting the entire system, and this concept is rooted in biology. We apply ecological and systems theory to Bea's case because we're looking at the various changes in the environment and how that has impacted her as a person. So this allows further insight into the systems that are impacting her life. We could utilize an eco map, looking at micro, meso, and macro systems that impact her. It also provides an opportunity for us as a social worker to connect with extended family, friends, and neighbors. It also allows for identification of what's important. So Bea is able to look at things that are important in her life and also set goals for her treatment. Erickson's stages of development considers how individuals' identities change and develop as they adjust to the challenges life continues to present as they age. So again, Bea is getting older. She's at a certain point in her life developmentally where she's going to experience some of these changes and how that impacts her. We also look at narrative theory, which focuses on a person's view of his or her personal story, how individuals make sense of their identity, the events in their lives, and the meaning behind those events. It also aims to enrich the lives of those who seek help by using stories. Narratives are accounts that people share through written, verbal, or artistic expressions and considered to be essential to human experience. So we see this way back, when individuals were using hieroglyphics on walls. It's a form of communication and sharing those stories. It's also a way to understand, organize, and maintain one's reality and make sense of one's experiences. So we can apply narrative theory to Bea's situation because it would allow her to review her life experiences and reflect on those. Applying narrative theory allows social workers to empathize with the experiences and also gain insight into how those experiences have shaped an individual. So with using narrative theory, Bea can begin to reinterpret her story. Creating a coherent narrative of oneself is the most critical developmental task. Thus, as the story of oneself becomes stronger, the ego becomes more. And this is part of Erikson's theory of, or part of stages of development. Some of the strengths and limitations of systems theory. So strengths are that it considers complexity of circumstances, so not looking at one isolated circumstance, but a multitude of circumstances that impact the individual. Its person and environment perspective takes a holistic approach to how systems can influence social problems. Some of the limitations are the complexity of theory is difficult to measure, and a lot of times people are looking for evidence-based practices, which again relies on measurement, and this is not something strong with this theory. It provides little direction to clinicians regarding interventions, and it can be considered a broad theory that lacks guidance for clinicians. Some strengths and limitations to narrative theory. The strengths are it's a meaningful process that provides comfort. It can be used with diverse populations. It can be used at micro, meso, and macro level, and it can serve as a call to action in social justice. Some limitations are lack of evidence-based practice, does not foster ability to make specific diagnoses, and it can be difficult for individuals with any cognitive impairments or limitations. So again, if they're having difficulty reading, writing, again, this is a very verbal, expressive theory to be applied, and it can be a hindrance to those who don't have that ability. Some other items to consider are FIDO, so frequency, intensity, duration, and onset to Bea's symptoms, Bea's age and ongoing medical concerns, and also Bea's culture and the things that she finds meaningful that can potentially aid in her treatment. So Bea experienced a traumatic event with the loss of her husband, but she does have a history of a nervous breakdown as a young woman. Her symptoms are impairing her daily functioning, but she is still relatively able to complete ADLs. The duration has been relatively long, considering her husband had passed away over a year ago. We must also consider her age and the ongoing medical conditions that could be affecting her psychiatric symptoms of depression, anxiety, mood instability, and lack of sleep. Jewish family services and her relationships with family and neighbors are also important to consider when thinking about her treatment. So again, all of these various systems and experiences allow us to properly look at the situation in full context and then provide a solid treatment plan for services. And that is it. Thank you.